Namaste, everybody. So I've signed on a few minutes early, and we're just going to give people time to come on into the Facebook Live program today. And today we'll be talking about Lyme disease when everybody comes into the program. And I'll be talking about the basic information about Lyme disease. I think it's important for everybody to know. I'll also be talking about Ayurveda and yoga therapy and how we can use Ayurveda and Ayurvedic yoga therapy in order to help people to really understand what they can do in order to enhance the possibility of their own healing taking place. So we'll be patient. We'll be waiting for a few more people before we get started. Hello, Paula. Welcome to the Facebook Live. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. And so I thought I'd sign on a few minutes early and just hang out with you all and have a cup of tea with you. Welcome, Wendy. And we'll just have a little time together before everybody arrives so that we can then all get started together. Make yourself comfortable, make yourself a cup of tea as we delve into our understanding of Ayurveda more and also our understanding of Lyme disease. Now, as always, at the end of the program, I will be taking your questions. And so if you have any questions, feel welcome to type them in, and my assistants will be noting all the questions and bringing them into me at the end of the program. And then I will be able to answer those questions. Welcome, Arpita. Nice to have you here again. We're just taking a few moments to let everybody arrive before we formally get started with today's program on Lyme disease. And as I was mentioning, Lyme disease is such a tremendous challenge. Tick-borne disease is such a tremendous challenge in our country right now. And I felt compelled to really talk more about it with our Ayurvedic and yoga community so that you can see what you can do in order to enhance the ability of people to heal themselves. Yeah, you're welcome, Paula. I'm happy to be here and happy to take some time with all of you. If you don't already know, I also conduct a Facebook group where I post regularly several times a week, and you can look for that Facebook group. It's called Ayurveda, Ayurvedic Yoga Therapy, and Yoga Nidra with Dr. Mark Halpern, and you're welcome to join that group at any time. So we'll be starting in just a couple of minutes as people begin to arrive, and there are some other places that you'll be able to find out more information as well. You can go to our CCA Facebook page. We also have a CCA Instagram page that you can go to. And of course, there are many other opportunities that you'll have if you want to study more. And you can attend any of our workshops and seminars, whether you're a student here at the school or not. Oh, welcome, Janka. Glad you're here today. We're just taking a few minutes at the beginning to allow people time to get started. We're sipping on a cup of tea. I feel like I'm having a cup of tea with you all, and we're just waiting for everybody to come on into the room, and then we'll get started, and we'll be talking today about Lyme disease. Once again, don't forget that at the end of the program, if you have any questions, you're welcome to type those in. In fact, you could type them in at any time, and my staff will be noting the questions and then bringing them into me. While we're just waiting for people to come on into the room, let me ask you a question, and you can just type in an answer. Do you know anybody who has had Lyme disease? It'd be interesting to know if you know anybody that has had Lyme disease. And other than for me, because you know me, and if you've read my book, you know that I have Lyme disease. So any of you either have Lyme disease or know of anybody that has Lyme disease? Maybe not. I'm not seeing any typing come in. It's only a few of you here right now, but I'm sure there'll be more people who will be joining us. In just a couple of minutes, we'll be beginning formally. So we'll just take a moment to hang out together. Lyme disease is such an important subject. It is, because we see a lot of Lyme disease. We see a lot of Lyme disease at our clinic. And we have patients here in California, and of course on the East Coast, it's very, very common. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just start with 3 ohms, and then we'll start talking more formally about Lyme disease. Om. So namaste, everybody. So let's begin with just talking about what Lyme disease is, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it. You've probably heard of it because so many people are afraid to even go walking in the woods today, afraid that they're going to get a tick bite. So Lyme disease is a tick-borne infection. So it's an actual infection that passes through from the tick into your body. The pathogen that's in there is a type of bacteria. It's called the spirochete, but that's just a spiral bacteria. And so it's a bacteria. The good news about that is that it often responds to antibiotic therapy. However, it is an unusual bacteria, and it's very difficult to completely eradicate from the body, which makes it difficult for a lot of people. So we all go for a walk in the woods. We all go for time. We spend time in parks. We spend time outdoors. And so it's something that we all have to pay attention to. And a lot of people that get Lyme disease wind up coming down with a chronic Lyme illness. And that becomes a major problem for their lives. So how many people get infected with Lyme disease? Well, it used to be that according to the CDC, they thought it was about 30,000 cases a year, which in and of itself in the United States, that's a lot of cases per year to come down with Lyme disease, especially with such a serious tick-borne illness. But today, they've realized that it's a lot more than that. And the new estimate is 300,000 cases a year in the United States. The good news is that not everybody who gets infected with Lyme disease comes down with such a terrible illness. The bad news is that a lot of people do. And some of you know that I was one of those that did come down with a very bad illness as a result of Lyme disease back in 1987. I was one of the early cases of Lyme disease here in California. And it's one of the conditions that really impacted my journey and impacted the course of my life. And perhaps I'll reflect on that a little bit more as we go through the program today. The pathogen, the type of bacteria that goes in there is called Borrelia, Borrelia burgdorferi. Now, we'll just call it Borrelia. So Borrelia is the main pathogen that causes Lyme disease. But when you get bit by a tick can have more than just one pathogen in it. A lot of times the ticks have more than one. They could have two, they could have three, they could have four. And the additional pathogens are called co-infections. So you'll hear the word Lyme co-infections when talking about Lyme disease. Now, and they add on to the symptoms that a person gets. That's the problem. You know, here you come down with Lyme disease, you've heard of this bullseye rash, maybe you've heard of. You get bit by a tick, you get a rash at the site of the tick bite that looks like a bullseye, so it's a circle around the bite. But that's just from the Borrelia. The other bugs, if you will, that cause it, Babesia, Ehrlichia, and Bartonella. These are the main co-infections that affect people with Lyme disease. So it's very, very challenging when you get a mix of all of these. And it's challenging for doctors to figure out what you have. First of all, the tests for Lyme disease are okay, but they're not foolproof in that you can test negative and still have Lyme disease. And you can test positive and not have Lyme disease. Now that may sound crazy, but that's what makes the diagnosis so difficult. You can test negative, and I tested negative. I had negative Lyme disease. That was one of the diagnoses I was given because I had been bitten by a tick, but I didn't test positive for it. You can have negative Lyme disease. And then if you test positive, you could have been bitten by a tick a year ago and it not cause any problem. And you're still testing positive today, and you may have some other condition. So the testing is not something that can be, very, very much relied upon. It makes it quite a challenge. So it's really the history of being bitten by a tick and then coming down and getting sick that makes a doctor think that you probably have Lyme disease. And then the treatments begin. And the way in which they're going to treat it is primarily with antibiotics. Now, the good news is that with Borrelia, if you have been bitten by a tick and it's been within 72 hours and you start antibiotic care, then the chances of you coming down with Lyme disease are very, very, very small, almost infinitesimal, which is why it's good if you've been bitten by a tick to go immediately to see your doctor. You can even go to an emergency room. Okay, it's not that you're going to have some kind of calamity in the next 72 hours, but you need to get treated right away. There are simple antibiotics that you can take. Now, if it's been more than 72 hours, then the chances of the antibiotics working at 100% level starts becoming less and less and less and less. And if you were sick for a couple of months and then you start getting treated, then it's going to be much more difficult. What kind of symptoms do you get when you get Lyme disease? Well, the first thing I told you about is you get a rash. You typically get this bullseye rash. But if you have one of the co-infections, and by the way, you can get the co-infections even without the main infection. So when people say I have Lyme disease, they mean that they have the Babesia, but you could have Bartonella, you could have Ehrlichia, and just those, and not even the Borrelia. So it's one of these conditions that you have to look at. And the symptoms, if you add them all up, they're really widespread. The first thing is rashes. So there's the bullseye rash, but you can also get something that looks like you've been scratched by a cat. And I know about this because I had that symptom. It's really one of the co-infections from Bartonella, and it's related to cat scratch fever, which you might have heard of. And so it looks as though you've been scratched by a cat, but what's interesting about it is that the rash moves about your body. It could be on your buttocks one day, your back on the next day, your chest on another day, your arm on another day. And it's one of the odd symptoms that comes with this condition. Now, one of the more common symptoms that comes with this condition, aside from the rashes, is arthritis. A lot of people come down with arthritis. I came down with arthritis. I was bedridden from the arthritis. And I tell my story in the book, Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda. First part of the book, the prelude, is my own story of trying to get through my own illness. I was sick for 7 years. I was crippled and bedridden from the arthritis that was related to Lyme disease. So it's a terrible condition. And one of the things that occur is that the joint pains move around your body, which makes it different from many other conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. One day it'll be in your knee, the next day it'll be in your elbow, the next day in your wrist, the next day in your ankles. It moves about. In addition to joint pains, you can get a kind of pain that you may have never experienced before, and that's a bone pain, a deep pain inside your bones. It feels as though the blood supply is being cut off. It's like Raynaud's syndrome, if you know what that is, where you're not getting enough blood into the bones begin to cry out in pain, and you get a deep pain inside your bones. I would get that in my ankles and in my legs. And then you can also get pain in your connective tissues, and you can get swelling in your connective tissues. And it feels as though your whole body is boggy. It feels as though your arms or legs are wrapped by a wet towel. And that can go on for many hours throughout the day. And some of these symptoms come and go throughout the day. It can be quite challenging. So the inflammation, the pain, is a big part of the condition for many people. Another part of the condition for many people is that it can affect the nervous system. And if it affects the nervous system, it winds up creating mental confusion. In addition, it exacerbates anxiety or depression, or a person who doesn't even have anxiety and depression may suddenly come down with anxiety, depression. But if you've had anxiety or depression in the past, it's very difficult to tell whether or not you're depressed because you're sick, or anxious because you're sick, or are you anxious because of the condition. So 1 + 1 = 5 in this situation. And whatever you had going on psychologically before often becomes worse when it starts to affect your nervous system, which is frustrating and challenging for doctors because we can't tell how much of it is from your psychological history and how much of it is from the Lyme disease. But that's another big part of it. And for some patients, they'll also have inflammation in the heart. You can have endocarditis, you can have myositis. This is where the heart tissue gets inflamed, and the electrical conductivity of the heart can become affected, and you can start getting irregular heartbeats, and that began to happen to me. I began to get irregular heartbeats as a result of the condition. In my condition, I didn't have a problem with my nervous system, not so much, but one part of my nervous system I did, and that's another symptom that a lot of patients get, and that's difficulty with sleep. And so what happens with this condition is that it disrupts the sleep rhythm of the body, and a person may only fall asleep at 5 o'clock and sleep for an hour or two. And of course, as a result of all of this, a person will be fatigued all through the course of a day. And that's another challenge that occurs. I experienced severe chronic fatigue for about 7 years following my condition. This was from 1987 to 1994. Now, some patients will get even more symptoms. There are more symptoms that can occur. For instance, due to Babesia, one of the Lyme co-infections, a person can get hemolytic anemia. Hemolytic anemia is where the red blood cells begin to break down in the body, and a person's going to experience severe fatigue and also an irregular heartbeat, fast heartbeat, symptoms like that. So when you add all of these conditions up and the co-infections that people get, it's no wonder that it's confused people, it's confused doctors. The diagnostic testing is challenging for this condition. And the treatments, well, the treatments, as I said, the medical treatments, if you get treated right away after you've been bitten by a tick, great job. You know, I'm a practitioner of alternative medicine, but I also believe in integrative medicine, which is the best of both worlds. And so if you can get treated right away with the proper antibiotics, doxycycline, for instance, there's a much lower chance that you're going to have any kind of a chronic problem. So I don't want you to panic about that. But if you do get bitten by a tick, go and get treated. Now, the longer it goes on, the more difficult it is to treat. And if you've been chronically sick and you go to the doctor, they may put you on those drugs. They may try intravenous antibiotics. These work with you know, in some patients they work and in some patients they don't. Most people who are going to be infected, the 300,000 people a year that are going to be infected, do not come down with the terrible disease. But for those who do, it's incapacitating, and you have to know what you can do in order to maximize your potential to heal. And that's what I want to talk about now. I want to talk about how you can maximize your potential to heal with Ayurveda and with yoga therapy. I think that's going to be the most important thing that I can tell you today. So first of all, when you've been treated and you're still sick, there's now a name for the condition, and it's post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. PTLDS, post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, is now an official diagnosis. It's characterized by normal labs. You know, you can actually test normal following your treatment, but still be sick. All right. So it's post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, or PTLDS. And you get fatigue and sleep difficulty, still having some joint pains, and all the problems that you had from before. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows what causes this chronic problem if you're testing now negative for the condition. Most likely, it's what's called a cross-immune reaction, which means that your immune system was reacting to the pathogen. The pathogen's now gone, but your immune system is still reacting, and it's now reacting to normal tissue. It's called a cross-reaction, a cross-immune response, as opposed to an autoimmune response, but it's very similar. It's very similar. All right, what can you do? You want to do everything you can do. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend is Yoga Nidra. Now, Yoga Nidra is a way in which you can receive a deep, deep rest in your body without sleeping. If you can't sleep, you can do Yoga Nidra. During my illness, I did 3 hours of Yoga Nidra a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and once in the evening. Those 3 hours of Yoga Nidra kept me going because I only got about an hour of sleep a night. And so 1 hour of Yoga Nidra is said to be as restful as 3 hours of sleep. So when you add it all up, it kept me going. So I really do recommend that. Now, Yoga Nidra also is more than just a deep, deep conscious relaxation, a deep, deep rest. It is a way of activating your body's immune response to normalize itself. I don't mean enhance it. I don't mean make it stronger. I mean to normalize it, to awaken the intelligence of your immune response. And so you can begin to visualize yourself well and doing all the things that you want to be doing in the state of Yoga Nidra. I don't have time to go into all about Yoga Nidra. I do teach a teacher training program in Yoga Nidra, but it's more than relaxation. It's more than conscious deep rest. It's actually activating the forces of the universe to create what you want to create in your life, including creating health and well-being. If you want more information on that, you can go to my CD, Yoga Nidra and Self-Healing. It's available at all the places you'd usually find a CD online. All right, so Yoga Nidra is the first thing that I'm going to want you to do. Now, the next thing that I'm going to want you to do is to take the time to rest in general. This is not the time to keep pushing yourself. You don't want to push through it. I know if you're chronically ill, you're thinking this is going to take a long time. It can, but your body really needs to rest. So if you can alter your life to be able to get more rest, you really want to do that. If you can take some time off, this is the time where you actually should use disability if you can. Get disability benefits and take a couple of months off to really work on yourself, to really heal yourself, to stay home, to rest, and use that time to take care of yourself doing all your Ayurvedic practices. Maybe you have a friend that can also help you out and be bringing food over. All of that's very important, especially if you're very sick. I was bedridden, so I know how important it is to have support. Now, we have a process in Ayurveda when you want to maximize the potential of the body, and that is to purify the body, followed by rebuilding the ojas of the body. And this is very important. So we purify the body in many ways. People have heard of pancha karma, which is the dramatic way to purify the body in Ayurveda. It's very expensive, and it may not be appropriate for you if you're very, very weak. You still need to do some purification, and for most people, all that means is cleaning up and perfecting your diet. This is not the time to be eating sugar. This is not the time to be eating gluten. It's not the time to be drinking wine or to be smoking pot or to be doing anything that might be a stressor on your body. Clean it up. This is a time for fruits, for vegetables, for whole grains, for nuts, for healthy oils, not deep fried food. This is the time to really clean up your diet and to make your diet constitutionally appropriate. Now, if you're having inflammation, that is a pitta problem. You don't want it to be excessively hot, so avoid the spices. And because of the migrating nature of this condition, it's primarily related to vata dosha. Vata can sometimes push the pitta out of balance, which is what creates the redness in the body, the red joints, the red skin. You have to treat this as a vata pitta condition in Ayurveda. Now, in addition to all of that, you then, after you go through a period of purification, which can include some nausea treatments, it can include some of the treatments we do in Ayurveda, it could include some enemas, it could include Virechana, but only if you're strong enough to go through that. And if you're not sure, you should really be doing it under the guidance of an Ayurvedic practitioner or Ayurvedic doctor. Now, once you've cleansed your body of ama is a toxin created inside your body as a result of poor digestion. So by cleaning up your diet and normalizing your digestion and doing these purification practices, you get rid of the ama in your body. Once that ama is gone, then we rebuild the ojas. And ojas of the body is that which stabilizes the body and stabilizes the mind. It is going to support your immune system, not make it hyperactive. This is a misunderstanding of a lot of people. When we say support your immune system, we mean that it improves the intelligence of your immune system, awakens the ability of your immune system to remember what it should be attacking and what it should not be attacking. We want to build up the ojas. It creates homeostasis in the body or balance in the body. So some of the best ways to build up your body at that time includes raw milk. A lot of people do not want to have milk when they're very sick, but now having purified the body, now is the time to have pure raw cow's milk. And that's taken warm, and it's taken with appropriate spices like cinnamon and cardamom and ginger, so that it doesn't clog up the channels of the body. Just a small amount of that sipped throughout the course of the day is very good. It also helps with sleep. Now, in addition to that, some of the foods that bring up your ojas are going to be the heavier, richer foods like the nuts and the grains, but you have to make sure that you digest it properly, and the oils, but you have to make sure that you digest it properly. You can't build ojas on fruits and vegetables alone. You have to take the healthier foods in. Otherwise, you'll lose a lot of weight. And many people with Lyme disease do lose a lot of weight from not feeling so well, also from the fevers that sometimes accompany it. So if you're losing a lot of weight and you've cleansed your body, you now have to build it up. So you can't just rely on fruits and vegetables. All right. Now, you've gone through purification and you've gone through now rebuilding your ojas. Everybody wants to know if there's a medicine that you can take. Is there a drug that you can take, herbal drug that you can take instead of the antibiotics? Well, the answer to your question is no, there's not. Okay, there's not one drug that you can take, but or herbal drug that you can take. There are many herbs, however, that will help you with the condition. For instance, if it's affecting your joints, the Gugaloo family of herbs are very helpful. Kaishira Gugaloo is particularly beneficial because it's not going to aggravate the inflammation. Yogaraj Gugaloo, it's a very common Gugaloo, very good for the joints and very good for Vata, but it often tends to be too hot for people with more of an inflammatory type of Lyme disease. Now, if it's affecting the heart, herbs like Amalaki and Arjuna are very, very good for controlling the inflammation in the heart. And if you're having the cognitive challenges that occur, then there are herbs like Brahmi and a family of herbs called Medhya Rasayanas that are very, very good for the neurological system and clearing away the challenges there. Ashwagandha is also very good for rebuilding the ojas of your nervous system. So that's going to be very, very important. But there is no one herb that's going to destroy all of these pathogens. If there is, and there may be, it just hasn't been studied. And I have to tell you that. I'd be remiss if I told you otherwise. There are not a lot of studies on these Lyme bacterium that have been done with various herbs. Would I take herbs that are known to be antibacterial? Absolutely. All right, especially if I'm having the chronic condition. So herbs like golden seal, herbs like turmeric are very antimicrobial and can be very, very beneficial. All right, many of the bitter herbs like neem are very antimicrobial, certainly worth trying. Now, if you didn't take the bacteria, let's say you didn't take the antibiotics. I didn't take any antibiotics when I tried to take one, had an anaphylactic reaction to it when I was sick. So I did not treat myself with antibiotics. All right, and so I went through the illness without that. I'm happy to tell you that I came out the other side, that I'm completely well today. And I did it using the Yoga Nidra. I did it by cleaning up my diet. I did it by cleaning up my life. I did it by resting enough. But it did take several months of being acutely ill and 7 years of having chronic fatigue before I would say that I was completely over the condition. So I think that's important for you to know. It's going to take dedication on your part in order to get well, and you've got to stay steadfast with your dedication and your healing. Please do the Yoga Nidra, and please do the Sankalpas. Now, there are some studies that have been done, interestingly, I want to let you know about this, that have been done on a couple of essential oils that appear to be very, very promising. And I want to tell you about 3 of them right away. They took a look at the essential oils of oregano, cinnamon, and clove. And these 3 essential oils do appear to be active against the Babesia. And this was done in vitro. This wasn't done in human or animal experiments. It was done in a petri dish. But it shows that the constituents in these essential oils destroy the bacteria. So that is very good, and that's fairly new research that's out there, and I want to let you know about that. Now, how you use that, you can, you're going to have to go into a good book. You can go into my book, Healing Your Life. There's a section on working with essential oils in there, or any book on aromatherapy or working with essential oils. You have to use them in a very dilute way, and you can use them both through aromatherapy and internal, but you've got to be really careful with the internal use of essential oils, and I don't have enough time to educate you on the proper use of it today, but I do want to make sure that you are aware of that. All right, let's take a look at some of your questions now. And one of the questions that came in is, when you say, it's from Indigo, when you say sugar, can you clarify? Yeah, when you want to clean up your diet, you want to let go of all of the different sugars if you can. Now, I don't mean that you can't have a trace amount of sugar, but you shouldn't have any sugar added to any foods. Sugar is not something in our natural diet in the manner in which we use it now, today. It's a stressor on the body. And I'm talking even about the natural sugars like maple syrup and honey. They're much better than white sugar. Don't misunderstand me. Sugar cane or jaggery too, not really a great part of our diet. We tend to rationalize it because we love it so much. And it's much better to use a natural form than an unnatural form. But yeah, I would cut all added sugar from your diet if you are trying to heal from Lyme disease, because it's a stressor. And anything that is a stressor on your body that has a sharp or sudden change in your body, and it changes your neurochemistry, and it changes your blood sugar, and it changes your insulin, is a stressor. And that lowers your OJAS. And boy, when you have chronic Lyme disease, you need every drop of OJAS that you can get. You need it all. So you do need to try to perfect your diet and your lifestyle as you're trying to heal from this. And you can. And you can. I went through this. I did it. And then years later, I began to find that there was a range that I could live within where I didn't have to be perfect, but I could still be well. All right. And as your OJAS comes back, you won't have to be perfect, but you can be well. All right. I don't know if we have any other questions at this point. If you have any questions, you're welcome to type them in for one last opportunity to ask those questions. And in the meantime, while I see if there's any more questions from you, I do want to tell you about a couple of things or opportunities you have if you want to learn more or study more. And I teach a couple of courses that are open to everybody, whether you're here at the school or not, in the form of workshops and seminars, and you're welcome to attend them. You're welcome to attend our Marma therapy program here at the school, which is in July. And Marma is another treatment that if you come to a clinic or you go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, receiving Marma therapy can be very helpful for normalizing the flow of prana throughout your body and supporting your healing process, not only from Lyme disease, but virtually any other condition. So I'd highly recommend that in addition to Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra you can do for yourself every day. Having a weekly Marma treatment would be an amazing treatment to support the overall treatment plan that you're following. I also teach the Ayurvedic massage and body therapy treatment program with Shirodhara and Ayurvedic massage, and you're welcome to attend that in July. Yoga Nidra, I teach teacher training programs throughout the year, 3 different locations, usually San Francisco, here in Nevada City or Grass Valley, and also in the Bahamas each year. And speaking of the Bahamas, each year I conduct a 5-day Ayurvedic conference there. And you are welcome to attend the 5-day Ayurvedic conference, where I invite teachers from all over the world to attend, everywhere from top teachers from India to Brazil to Canada and other parts of the world. And you'll have 5 days with 5 teachers. All right, another question just came in. We'll make this our last question before we end today. Do you know about live bee venom therapy for healing Lyme disease? I do not. That is not something that we use in Ayurveda. But bee venom has been used in other conditions as well to try to create a sudden immune response that might get rid of a variety of different conditions that people have. But I can't testify to its value or any challenges that might arise from it. I want to thank you for taking the time today to listen to today's Facebook Live program about Lyme disease. I do hold these programs periodically throughout the year, usually every month or 2 months. I'll be doing a Facebook Live program. Tune into our Facebook group, Ayurveda, Yoga Nidra, and Ayurvedic Yoga Therapy with Dr. Mark Halpern, in order to keep up to date on when I'll be doing my next Facebook Live, or join the college page, the California College of Ayurveda Facebook page, always posts the events there. Many blessings to all of you on your healing journey. We'll chant Om together 3 times to close. Om. 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 Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, peace, peace. Namaste, everybody. Many blessings as you continue your own healing journey. Be well, be kind, be loved.